Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Harry Brailsford with another segment on Microsoft 365 Nation, and I am delighted to announce another contributor, Jenn Reed. I'm going to let Jenn introduce herself because she's quite impressive. So, Jenn, without further ado, this audience, they may not know Jenn Reed. Who are you, and what's the book you just put out?
Hi, Harry. Thanks for the opportunity to come here and speak to your group. Hi, everyone. So as Harry said, my name is Jenn Reed. I am author of a recently published book called Microsoft 365 Business for Admins for Dummies. And previously, I also wrote the book called Office 365 for Dummies. So currently, I serve as a manager for a team of solution architects for one of the larger Microsoft partners. So my team, typically, what we do is we show our customers the art of the possible when using technology and driving productivity and security in their organization.
Yeah.
I like, I ski, I garden, but when I'm not writing books, that's what I do.
You do. I see you up on Facebook skiing. And in honor of today, I love the way you use the word vintage. I use the word old school, but I got out my old MCSE shirt for two reasons. One is to honor the occasion, but number two, our audience will appreciate that you're still technical, and we appreciate that. That's a lost art at some point in people's careers. But hey, without further ado, why did you write the book? What's up? Why did you write the book?
So there's really actually two audiences for the book, Harry. So Microsoft 365 Business for Admins for Dummies is the title of the book. So one of my audiences is the business owner, the business decision maker who needs to understand what are the technologies available for me today that would allow me to play in a level playing field. So Microsoft 365 is that technology that, you know, the Fortune 500 companies are using now, but at a cost that small business can afford. So that's one audience. The other audience really are the IT admins who have realized the value of Microsoft 365 for the business, for the small business that they're managing, but need some guidance and reference on how to implement it, because it's one thing if you just, you know, there's no shortage of documentation online on how to implement Office 365 or migrate email. But if you have some background information of what are the pitfalls of other people that have done and how to avoid them, how do your investment in Microsoft 365 Business is only as good as the people using it. So in the book, I also talk about how do you drive adoption to the technology that you've invested in. So really the inspiration for this book and the reason why I wrote this is because number one, I want to help small businesses. And number two, I would love to be able to share my experiences for those IT admins who are planning to deploy the solution.
Yeah, and I would add a number three that I really like the Dummies series for two reasons. One is I love getting the books on the floor of trade shows, and the books are surprisingly technical. Mm-hmm. Number two, I learn from them, and I learn in the way I want to learn, and it's called an airplane flight, and mm-hmm. I can take those Dummies books. Now, yours is a retail Dummies book, so it's a little thicker, but mm-hmm. the point is, there's some there. Yeah. Hey, I'm going to ask you another question. So let's focus on security. That's one of our pillars here at Microsoft 365 Nation. Mm-hmm. And in part 4, you suggest building a culture of security via Microsoft 365. Let's talk at a high level, then we're going to double click down into some specifics in a minute.
Exactly. So in today's threat landscape, Harry, security is not just the job of your IT team or your IT admin, nor is it just the job of your cloud solutions provider like Microsoft or AWS for that matter. So security is everybody's responsibility. So in Microsoft 365 Business, there are security policies and configurations that are already preset, and all you need to do as an IT admin is when you go into your organization, look at what are your requirements, and then you can tweak those policies to make it fit the needs of your organization. But at the same time, there also your end users need to be aware of what's the threat landscape. So it's not just you rolling out policies, but everyone in the organization being aware of what's happening in the environment so they can also protect themselves. Like, I consider myself pretty technical, and I'm very aware of security breaches. And yet I still fall prey to those social engineering emails. Like the other day, I got an email saying, "Hey, we forgot something about your payroll. Can you click this so that you can enter in your banking information?" And like I was in a rush. I clicked, and then I realized, oh, this is totally not legit. And so I fall prey to that. I'm sure that there's a lot of our
every day.
are being targeted. So it is. We need to build that culture of security so that everybody is aware.
No, I love it. Hey, let's get technical. One part of the book, pages 126 through 132, you talked about how to deploy and manage multi-factor authentication in Microsoft 365. And the reason I bring that up is one of our contributors is the very popular Dana app security MVP, who is well known for startup he had in yesteryear for double authentication. So what is multi-factor authentication in Microsoft 365?
So Harry, in the first place, thank you for confirming that you did read my book to be able to point out the page numbers. So thank you.
Don't know how to read.
So you know what? Multi-factor authentication is actually not something new in the block. So if you've ever used, an online banking system or even Facebook, where you have to provide a second factor authentication so that the system can confirm that it is really you who's logging in, that is multi-factor or second factor authentication.
Yeah.
So it's without knowing it, a lot of us are actually already using it. Now, Microsoft 365 Business, by virtue of Azure Active Directory, the Enterprise Mobility plus Security Suite, and Windows 10, there are already services that are pre-configured. So multi-factor authentication MFA is already a setting that's on by default in Microsoft 365 Business. So as an admin, all you really need to do is to go to the settings section of the MFA service.
Okay.
And pick and configure the right settings for your organization. Questions like to think about would be, how do you want your users to provide the second factor authentication? Is it via text, via phone call, via an authenticator app? So those are the settings. A couple clicks, and then you hit save, and then you've got MFA running in your organization. So then the next step is really now you enable each of the users for MFA. So you don't have to enable all. Ideally, you should, but in the beginning, when you're just rolling it out, you also want to make sure that you test it in your pilot, so you can see how your users are adopting it, and you can tweak your settings. So when you enable it, is actually you enable it for user. And then the experience for the end user would be when they log into the system, there will be like a wizard or a guided prompt that tells them, hey, your admin enabled MFA for you, click this. And then they would, they'll ask them, how do you want to do the second factor? Do you want to be called? Do you want to have a text message? It's all, like I said, I did it. It took me as an end user probably to set it up at most 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, I love it. Next question, walk me through chapter 12. Where you talk about demystifying information protection. And a term that I'm not real familiar with, and I'm not sure our audience is the AIP. So what's going on?
So Azure Information Protection, or AIP, is one of the services that's included in the Enterprise Mobility plus Security Suite. And again, this is just one of the features or factors that you could put together so that you can manage security in your environment. So At a very, very high level, AIP does 3 things. So number 1 is to classify and label your data. So classification and labeling could be things like, is this email internal use only? Is it do not forward? Is it external, but they can't print, they can't forward? So those are how you classify and label your data, and then what the level of encryption is. So once you've classified and labeled your data, then that's when the next step is to protect that data. So if I had encrypted my email to just say internal use only, then the system, the policies in the system will not allow somebody who's outside of the organization to read or open that email, and that's how you protect your data. And then the last part of it is really the tracking and the monitoring. So if I had labeled a piece of data as it's okay to send it to an external users like you, Harry, but then I said, Harry, you can't forward this to anybody else. But then Harry, because you really wanted to forward it to somebody else, you send it to somebody in Asia, I would get a notification that say, hey, Harry forwarded your email, and then I can go in the back end and revoke access to that document or to that data. So that's, like I said, three ways or three concepts is classify and label, then protect, and then the monitoring and the tracking. That's all encompassing the AIP.
All right, I'm making a note. Next month when we visit again, because we appreciate you being a contributor here at Microsoft 365 Nation, I am teeing that up as the conversation. Okay, so we're going to
dive.
Yeah, we're going to double click down into that because my head's spinning.
Okay. Well, I hope I didn't put too much, like make your head spin too much. Like really think of it as just protecting your data. That's what AIP does. Mm-hmm.
Oh, for today, that's sufficient. Hey, last question before we have to go. I love the way that you talked about measuring your security posture in Chapter 13. And specifically for myself and the audience, what is the Secure Score dashboard? You know, I'm a fan of analytics. So what's going on?
The Secure Score dashboard is really something that you would find in the Security and Compliance Center and the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. Yep. And what it does, the Secure Score is kind of like your credit score in terms of your security posture for your organization. So there's algorithm, and then there's artificial intelligence and machine learning that's happening in the background that basically analyzes the security settings in your tenant, in your Microsoft 365 tenant, and then gives you an idea of where you stand in terms of your security posture for your organization compared to other organizations of similar size, similar industry. And beyond just giving you a number, a secure score number, it also gives you a list of what are the actionable things that you can do today to increase your score. So it's all laid out there, and there it even has like links. It's just like if you deploy, like one of them may be, hey, it looks like your score is, let's say 136, but your industry, the average is 250. And one of the ways that you can increase it is just by implementing multi-factor authentication. So then there's a link that tells you how to do it and what are the repercussions. So.
Excellent. Well, let's end on, if you could hold the cover of your book up again, please, because folks, you can buy this at your favorite book resellers, both online and brick and mortar. So Jenn Reed, the author of Microsoft 365 Business for Admins and the Dummies series, thank you very much. Hey, go out and ski. Enjoy.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.